Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7:01 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Merrimack Planning Board for Tuesday, July 6th, 2021. Let's do a few housekeeping items. Let me remind everyone who will address the board to make sure the microphone is turned on and you speak clearly into it so the folks at home can hear you. Even when we can hear you in the room, the folks at home have no chance without the microphone. The light on the front of the microphone is a button to push it, and it'll be bright green when it's on. When you speak, please introduce yourselves and with your name and address. Other housekeeping items, let's appoint Nelson into a voting position, substituting for Lynn. Let's welcome our newest member, Jamie, to the meeting, everybody. Thank you for joining our board and getting appointed by the town council.
What's your last name?
What's that?
What's your name?
Von Schoen. Von Schoen. Did I say it right?
Oh, okay.
Close enough? Well, I don't want to be close enough. Give me right.
Okay.
Von Schoen. Schoen. I can't make that sound. I want to go with what I said before. July 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. is our next meeting after tonight in this Matthew Thornton room. I think that is all the housekeeping items to attend to. With that, Robert, is there a planning and zoning administrator's report tonight?
The only items we have tonight are that the Curry subdivision and the Minoki and Listoka subdivisions are not of regional impact.
Okay, what's the will of the board with respect to the staff recommendation that those two projects are not of regional impact?
I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second for Nelson's motion? Second by Paul. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? I didn't hear you say aye, so 5-0-0 to approve that. Are there, Robert, is there any other items?
Nothing tonight.
Does any member of the board have questions for the staff? If there's none, then we will move beyond our planning and zoning administrator's report. One more semi-housekeeping announcement. Item 5 on our agenda, which is Robert and Karen Curry. I'm informed that there was a defect in the notice to the abutters, and therefore that item will not be heard tonight. And so if you are here for that item, you need not stick around for that news flash. Item 3 on the agenda is 57 and 59 Daniel Webster Highway, Merrimack LLC as the applicant and owner. It is continued review for acceptance and consideration of a site plan to construct a 100,700 square foot manufacturing building and construct a 66,000 square foot manufacturing addition to the existing 449,500 square foot warehouse building. The parcels are located at 57 and 59 Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, Tax Map 2E, Lot 6 and Lot 6-1. It is Case Planning Board 2021-19. It has been continued from our June 1, 2021 Planning Board meeting. Robert, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just as a basic introduction to the project, the applicant was scheduled on June 1st. They received the staff memo and comments and decided to request continuance to try to address those before coming before you to make their formal presentation. The other clarification item is that the 66,000 square foot addition is for warehouse use and the 100,000 square foot building is for a manufacturing use. That was an outstanding question during staff review initially. Outside of that, peer review has been completed, so I would be willing to have you turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you, Robert. Is the applicant here? Come on forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tom Hilden. I'm an attorney with McLean Middleton Law Firm in Manchester, New Hampshire. With me is the applicant tonight. Our team includes Steve Gorlacki, who's with R.J. O'Connell Associates. They're the civil engineers on the project. And we have with us two folks from Calaire Properties, who are the ultimate owner of the LLC that holds title to the property. Jeff Checkaway and Eve Zerla. Mr. John.
I don't think your microphone's on.
Sorry. Got to do that all over again, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
For the record.
Yep.
All right, sorry
They
about that.
prepare the minutes from the recording, so if
Okay,
it didn't
all
make
right.
the recording, they won't get it.
Mr. Chairman, Tom Hildreth, outside counsel for the applicant with McLean Middleton in Manchester, New Hampshire. With me for the applicant tonight is Steve Glowacki, who is with R.J. O'Connell Associates. They're the civil engineers for the project. We also have a couple of folks from the property owner, Calaire Properties, Jeff Checkaway and Eve Zerlip. As the staff report mentions, we were scheduled to be with you in June. We've taken a lot of advantage in the time since then. We actually, before the Conservation Commission on June 7, got a favorable recommendation with some minor suggested conditions that we've already incorporated into our plans. We've responded in a thorough and detailed fashion to the Fuss and O'Neill engineering reports. We've seen the departmental report from the fire department, and we've seen the most recent staff report from Mr. Thompson that recommends that our application is in shape for acceptance and conditional approval. We support that conclusion, and Steve is going to give us a brief overview of the project. For those of you, I'm sure you're familiar with this. This was an old Nashua Corporation campus. Dates back to the 1960s, kind of in the southern part of Daniel Webster Highway, kind of kitty corner opposite where the YMCA is located. Calaire has owned the property since 2009. When they, during their tenure, the property went down to almost mothballed status, and they've since been successful in re-tenanting it. It's almost fully tenanted now, occupied now, which is why they're here with their proposed expansion plans. 66,000 square feet would be an addition to an existing building at the southern end of the footprint of the campus, and then the 100,000 square foot building would be a new standalone building at the northern end of the campus. So I'll let Steve give us an overview. Can he use that mic? Does that pull out?
Yes, absolutely. If he wants to use the portable one to walk around and point to the diagram, absolutely. There's a switch, I think, on the side of it if it's not already turned on.
Is this on? Test?
It's not on. Might have been on when you started.
Test. Is the battery dead?
I don't know.
I could sit, that's fine, I'll just point.
Yeah, try the switch in the other position and see if it.
That's off, I think.
No. Hang on. We get our tech folks to come fix you up.
Test.
There you go. That works.
Right. Excellent. So for the record, I'm Steve Glowacki. I represent R.J. O'Connell and Associates. As Tom pointed out, we are the civil engineers on the project. The project is located at 59 Merrimack Street. It's bounded by Mast Road to the north, some industrial properties, the B&M Railroad, and of course beyond the B&M, the Merrimack River to the east, and then by undeveloped land to the south, primarily wooded, and then Daniel Webster Highway, of course, to the west, which it gains its frontage. It's currently being used as a warehouse, as was mentioned. Warehouse uses approximately 449,500 square feet. And portions of the north site include paved parking areas and a soccer field in the existing locations. And then to the south, as I mentioned, some scrub and brush and a wooded area, which is what we intend to develop. The proposed plan includes a 100,700 square foot building for manufacturing, which would be again at the north side of the site in those areas I mentioned. And then 660,000 square foot building expansion for warehouse use to the south. They're both, of course, allowed by right in the industrial I-1 district. So there'll be parking for approximately 260 spaces to the south of the building at the north, with another 36 spaces with another 36 spaces to the east side of the building to the south. Additionally, we're going to reconfigure parking in the center of the site, and the total will be 543 spaces. Based on the uses and the requirements associated with that, we require 470 spaces, so we have a surplus of about 70 spaces. Loading bays for Both buildings will be located to the west for the building to the south, and then loading bays will also be included to the north of the north building. Access for the site will remain the same, and that'll be from Daniel Webster Highway, with traffic coming in from the south side in one direction and coming into the site, and then leaving to the north entry along Daniel Webster. There is sufficient circulation around the building for truck traffic and then vehicular traffic in here, as well as sufficient circulation for fire department vehicles. Similarly, there'll be circulation around the building addition as well, and again, that is wide enough and sufficient enough for the emergency vehicles. Why don't I fix this? With this design, there'll be an increase of approximately 350,000 square feet of impervious area. To mitigate this, we've developed a comprehensive stormwater design, both at the north ends of the site and the south as well. And that consists of catch basins with deep sumps and hoods to capture the stormwater, and that'll be routed through particle separators and eventually outletting into subsurface detention basins for the roof drains and surface detention basins for the pavement drainage at the north of the site, while at the south of the site, stormwater will be routed again through catch basins, particle separators into subsurface systems. Peak rates will be reduced, meeting the state requirements, and stormwater quality will be maintained. Utilities on the site will be supplied from the utility site, utilities on site currently. So water will be provided from an interior loop, and that's both for fire supply, fighting supply, and domestic services. Gas will also be provided from an on-site loop. Electric will be provided from overhead lines heading to transformers both at the north and south side of the building. And sanitary will flow from the south side of the building into an existing system while the sanitary from the southern building will flow out the back on the east side along to an existing sewer manhole. As part of the plan, we've provided a comprehensive landscape and lighting package, as shown here in an overall plan. The landscaping that will be provided is native in nature, and we intend to use low phosphorus fertilizers at the recommendation of the Conservation Commission, and snow removal will be handled by Green Snow Pro, for the snow management, both at the north and again at the south side of the site. Traffic study was also provided as part of materials prepared by Vanessa and Associates, and the conclusion ultimately was that there was minimal impact for the site, with essentially 514 car trips average on a weekday for two-way traffic, with 65 car trips, 52 in out and 13 out for the morning, and 72 evening trips projected with 21 in and 51 out. So at that point, I think we could turn it over for questions. Again, I can get as detailed as you like. I'm trying to give you an overview with all the components on quite a complex site, but ultimately it is relatively simple. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Steve, for the presentation. Board members, our first task is to determine completeness, and so if you have questions necessary to that determination, now's the time. And if you don't have any questions and can take up the question of whether the application is complete, then a motion would be in order.
Well, I have some
Nelson.
questions, but,
Fire away.
yeah, okay. First of all, I'm not familiar with this particle separating device. Could you explain to me what that is and what that does?
Sure.
Yeah.
We called for particle separators, which are a structure, a drainage structure, which circulates stormwater by the use of a swirl concentrator, which is a metal pan essentially inside the structure, and it swirls the water as it comes into the pipe system, which settles out the suspended solids. So the treatment train, as we call it, is essentially stormwater goes through the catch basins, and the heavy sediments settle out into a sump. We have a hood provided which keeps any oils and floating oils or anything of the sort out of the piping. That gets routed into these particle separators I mentioned, which again are swirl concentrators to further remove sediments. And then finally, the stormwater is discharged to the subsurface or surface detention basins where the additional treatment is provided as the solids move through the soil and infiltrate into the groundwater.
Okay, these require a certain amount of maintenance, I would think.
They do. So in New Hampshire, we provide via the, at the state's guidance, an I&M plan, which is a inspection and maintenance program that's included as part of our stormwater report. And that basically ties the owner to ensure that they do their annual maintenance and in some cases, biannual inspection of different devices and parts of the drainage system to ensure they're working properly.
Okay. Could you explain the overall drainage system? I know there's a lot there already, and how that's being handled and the additional that you're putting in.
Sure, if I may grab the microphone again.
Yeah.
Test. So stormwater on the north side, or the building addition side, is essentially routed. The stormwater flows away, and you can see the grading here, the contours. Stormwater flows away into these catch basins along the south side of the parking area. Stormwater is then directed, as I mentioned, through the catch basin to settle out, through the the particle separator, at which point it will discharge into this detention basin. And this detention basin, again, settles out any additional solids as the water infiltrates into the ground. Should there be an intense storm event, that we provided an overflow. And essentially what that means is, should the water get up to the rim of the basin, there's an overflow that goes down and ties into the existing trunk line that goes through the site, as there is an existing line through the site. That's in a 100-year storm event, so we've reduced peak rates quite a bit, so we don't anticipate anything like that happening. But now for the roof drainage is captured via a pipe network along the rear of the building, and it's routed through the same type of treatment chain into a subsurface basin. So this is underground chambers that store the water underground and let them infiltrate into the ground. For the portions of the site to the south, because we're a little bit less, we have less of a footprint to deal with, we provided all the storage, or all the infiltration rather, subsurface along the southern edge of the property line. So again, stormwater and roof drains will be gathered up in a pipe network along here, and it'll infiltrate into the subsurface system to the south of the building to the south.
All this was reviewed by Fuss and O'Neill, Bob?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and did they have any comments or?
I can't speak to it. He probably should, because Tim did the bulk of the review on this one. So I would defer to the applicant to speak to what the comments were.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I would defer to the applicant to see what the comments were, because Tim
Oh,
did
yeah.
the bulk of the review here.
That's right. Stormwater was reviewed as part of the Fuss and O'Neill memo. Most of the comments were based on ensuring that we provided our stormwater management system to meet the state standards for the alteration of terrain permit, which we do, of course, intend to file. It was ensuring that we use the proper infiltration rates, the proper pipe sizing and so forth, and it was a robust comments, geared toward that, as well as other comments, to the filing. But yes, did a very comprehensive review of the stormwater system.
It meets our MS4 standards, is that,
That's right, as part of the filing, we will, yes.
yeah. Okay, that's all I have on that subject.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? And if not, Barbara, please.
Hi there. Today, the properties are, the buildings are located east and west of each other. But now you're saying that they're going to be north and south. So what does, nothing in the packet, gave me a sense of, here's what the final product will look like?
Hang on to this, I apologize. If I can direct your attention to the overall site plan. The existing building, there is an existing building at 57 Daniel Webster up here that's owned by the applicant as well, and then the building here at 59. When I speak to the north and south, what I mean is the proposed building will sit at the north side of the site, and then the addition will sit at the south side of the site.
So you're taking out the soccer field for all intents?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
And there's a restaurant that's located right to your very north, right next door, yep, on the other side of that line. And are you going to have a buffer, enough of a buffer for them as well?
Yes, we
Because you
will.
will be bringing trucks into there.
Yes, we will. It's a very good question. So there's several things that will help us with that. First of all, we intend to leave most of the tree line along this edge. There'll be some impacts where we regrade it. The other thing that we have going for us to help with the screening is the building will sit quite a ways in the valley, some 20 or 30 feet below. So that in itself will act as screening where someone won't be looking out the restaurant at a building. It will be
Right.
down in a valley and screened.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do any other members have comments or questions? If not, then the task before us is to determine whether the application is complete. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, motion to find the application complete?
Yes, okay, thank you, Barbara. Is there a second for Barbara's motion? Nelson has a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? One abstaining. Okay, 401 for this. Jamie gave me a warning that as her first meeting, she may abstain a lot, so we'll have to figure that out as we go. Okay, so we have that it's complete. The applicant has requested no waivers, so there's no need for discussion about that. We have the task before us to find out if there's any public testimony. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in on this application? Sure. Come on up to the table. Gentlemen, can you either give the table or a microphone or something? Yeah. Introduce yourself and then tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, my name is Bill Fallon. I live at Merrimack Drive for 25 years, and I'm sort of in a butter. My concern is traffic, and being a retired truck driver, number one is the truck traffic coming in and out of it. Years ago, when there wasn't light at that intersection coming out, and the DOT took that out.
How many years ago was that?
Oh, that was quite a while ago that they took it out. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
Well, I do. It was there.
How long ago did it go away?
Well,
10 years at least.
It was when Nashua Corp was really going, and they had a lot more in and out traffic. As the traffic went down with the demise of Nashua Corp and converting mostly to warehouse, the state decided they needed that light somewhere else. And so they picked it up and moved it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, actually, the light posts are still there,
Okay.
but it's a complicated problem with the DOT because 300 feet down at the traffic light at Harris Pond Drive, we're having a major problem with the DOT on that. And they put the left-hand turn lane in and didn't stripe the street, so that now we have trucks coming down and not being able to turn into the street because they're in the wrong lane. You know, I've been trying to talk to the DOT about it, but the thing is, the problems we have now are going to be exacerbated by this, and if they don't bring the light back in, then trucks will not be able to get in and out of there, because at that point on DW Highway, it's the choke point. It goes from 2 lanes to 1, and then for 200 feet, and then you got the other light. So we have a major problem with that whole stretch, and so it's not his problem, but it's the general area. And his traffic study, you know, I don't know if that included trucks or if the warehouse was the one that's for lease, if that was leased to another, say another trucking company that was in there a little while ago. There could be another 100 trucks a day coming in and out of there.
So they do have some of those calculations in their traffic report, and we'll ask the applicant after your public testimony is over to respond to the comments that you've made as to those things.
Okay, I'd just like to see if they could somehow coordinate with the DOT ahead of time and see if they could fix these problems, you know.
Yep.
Down the road.
Let's see where the discussion goes tonight. A little tongue in cheek, I can say that almost nobody has influence over the DOT these days.
Yeah, I know, that's,
It's been a headache on some other projects as well. But thank you for your testimony. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Fallon? Thank you. Are there other abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? We'll close the public hearing. Steve, are you able to respond a little bit and discuss the traffic report and the potential impacts that are available there? I know that the light isn't coming back, but
Yes, I can. So the first step, again, we engaged VAI, Vanessa and Associates, to do the traffic study. Their first point of engagement was to reach out to the town to find out what they may need to consider for their traffic report. Their second call was to the New Hampshire DOT, and they did discuss this quite at length with them and reviewed the program and the package to understand what was needed. Now, full disclosure, as was mentioned in the memo, we are going to do a modified access permit because, again, we're changing uses here. But again, the program has been vetted. Additionally, truck traffic was addressed in the traffic memo. But again, full disclosure, this is a speculative build. In other words, we don't have a tenant secured yet, but they looked at, you know, the package, or how this would typically work in a building of this size with this number of vehicles and square footage. So that's how it was designed and vetted through the design process.
thank you, Steve. Robert, was this also provided to our consultant engineers?
Yes, it was.
Review? Did they have any comments about the traffic piece of it?
I'd have to go through the letter.
Okay. See if you can take a peek while we're doing a little bit of the further discussion and see if there's any follow-ups on that.
It wasn't distributed to the planning board, though, was it?
The traffic? Yeah, it's in your package.
The traffic report?
Yep.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
Or at least it was in my package. I hope that they're all the same. Barbara?
Yeah, just a question. You used Vanis and Associates out of Andover, Mass. Did they come to Merrimack to do the traffic study in person, or did they just use figures and algorithms for that one?
I'm not sure if I can't speak to, pretend to speak to if they actually met with the staff to discuss this, but they do rely on data and things that are collected. I don't believe actual ground counts were done, if that's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, what they do is they use numbers that the state has, in their files, and then they extrapolate on that by plugging in the proposed program. So I don't believe actual ground counts were done.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add too, just in there's one paragraph in the Fuss and O'Neill review, and it ends with, we concur with Vanessa and Associates' overall conclusion that given the relatively low number of trips expected to be generated by the site's proposed use, there should be minimal impacts on traffic operations on the roadway network adjacent to the site. You know, the applicant obviously, you know, in order to attract tenants, wants a functioning roadway and not long queues and so forth, and, you know, DOT, you know, wants to balance the needs of people getting off the road with people just driving through, and you know, I was not aware that there was a light at that intersection, but it doesn't surprise me when, you know, there were several hundred or thousands of employees at Nashua Corp going in and out every day.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, right. But,
Yeah, we have an interesting situation with the Daniel Webster Highway, and it's always underestimated.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
why I asked, because it does, what it appears on paper is not what it is in reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Other comments or questions for the applicant? So, Robert, you don't need to dig any further. We've gotten that from the applicant. Thank you for that. And Tom, thank you for that. If there's any further discussion, there are no waivers requested, and so if we don't have further questions, it's appropriate for the board to consider whatever final disposition it would like to make. What's the will of the board? Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that the board grant final conditional approval to the applicant, including all the precedent conditions to be filled within 6 months, as according to Tim's memo.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second for that motion?
Second it, Mr. Chairman.
Second, twice. We'll count Barbara for the second. She was
Sure.
ladies first, right?
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
There you go. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 401. Thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation. You're very detailed, and you covered the lighting and the landscaping very, very thoroughly and well. You talked through the parking very well, so really nice job on the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Item 4 on our agenda is North Shore Trailer and Suspension LLC as the applicant and Joseph Nissim owner. This is a continued review for consideration of a waiver of full site plan review to operate a trailer suspension and repair business. The parcel is located at 20 Star Drive in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation District. Tax map 3D1, Lot 12. Case Planning Board 2021-21. And it's continued from our June 15th Planning Board meeting. Robert, is there anything that we should know before we hear from the applicant?
Just by way of summary, the applicant was last before the board on June 15th. They did make every possible effort to revise the plan to meet the standard that would be acceptable for what would be considered as a waiver of full site plan review. So we take no exception to that. They worked very hard for that. However, since that last meeting, on that plan revision that you have in your packets, the applicant is proposing a solution to the drainage problem that exists that you heard about last time by trying to construct something to divert stormwater, to retain it onto the site to try to infiltrate it into the ground. Because of that, staff cannot support the plan as it sits because we don't have anything that's been engineered. And we did convey as much to the applicant. I know the applicant wants to present their case as to why they would prefer to be approved for that design. This is not a surprise coming from us, so I just know we cannot recommend that the board approve. However, we'd certainly defer to the applicant to make their case to you.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for coming in. Please introduce yourself and provide an update to where we're at with things. Touch the push button there and make it, there you go.
That's better. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of staff. I'm here before you again for the second time tonight to beg your understanding with this plan that we agreed 3 weeks ago was 40 years old. And I did, as we discussed at that meeting, meet with the planning board staff and followed all of their instructions and made all of the changes and have presented to you what I think is the best case plan at this point in time for our request for a waiver. As I mentioned back on the 15th of June, one of the reasons we decided to come before the board with an outdated plan was because of time constraints. Well, needless to say, we're 3 weeks later, and it's the 11th hour. So I'm going to review some of the changes that we've made and talk about this drainage issue, which I believe is an issue. It was actually in my review with the staff that this really came to light, that that had been proposed and accepted back in 1982 was never completed. So the town of Merrimack has lived with this issue for 40 years because the work was not done. What we're proposing is not going to make it any worse. And actually what we're proposing is that we fix this problem once and for all. So that's basically our intention. The issue really here is our request, as it mentions in the notes, is to obtain approval for the operation of a tractor-trailer maintenance business in the 8,500 square foot of the building. As you've seen from the plan, the building is over 20,000 square feet. At this point, our plan is to rehab the building, both inside and out, and then put a portion of the building on the market for lease. As you know, that's going to require us to come before this board again before this summer is over, and I'm fully anticipating doing that. In addition, sometime in August, we're planning on going before the zoning board to get a waiver for a particular use to accommodate the owner's dealer's license. So what I'm saying right here is that this is not the last time you're going to see this happy face, all right, because I'm going to be back here a couple more times to try to get this building up and running the way it should and to be productive. So that's basically why we're here. I want to talk a minute about the drainage. It shows on this plan that there should have been a drainage swale built that would have taken the water from the front parking lot and actually put it behind the building along the railroad tracks. If you look at the original proposal for the swale, it actually crosses the roadway onto another parcel of land. Clearly, that's not acceptable. You can see by the drawing adjustment that I made that the intention now would be to divert that water to the back of the property along the railroad track. Now, I understand, and believe me, I don't want my client to build this thing without a plan, because you know what? It won't work. So what I'm saying to you is that after our discussions with the planning staff, we've agreed that, yes, we do need to hire an engineer. We do need to bring a current existing conditions plan to this board, so it's updated as of 2021. And before we build anything, we will get it designed properly by a certified engineer. So that's my promise to you, all right? I don't want to come back here and have to ask for your forgiveness again. All I want to do is try to get my client to be able to stay in business during this interim period where we're trying to fix this building and the site to the way it should be. So I guess that's what I have to say. I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have.
Do members of the boards have questions for the applicant? Nelson, go ahead.
Yeah. Have you contacted an engineer yet?
Yes, I have. I have a proposal right here. As soon as we get approval, it's going to get signed. It'll take about 4 to 6 weeks for him to complete his work, and that's why we're planning on going to the zoning board probably the end of August, beginning of September.
Are you able to share which engineering firm you're considering hiring?
I've been working with SFC Engineering out of Windham, New Hampshire.
Okay. I don't know if we've met them before.
No.
Nelson, do you have other questions?
No, not pertaining to that.
Yeah.
I still have some problems with this whole idea.
Potentially so as well. So let me understand what happened from 1982 on. This plan that shows these various drainage structures between Star Drive, or at the, let's see, the south end of the parcel at the end of the building, none of those drainage structures were actually built and in place?
None of it was ever built.
Okay.
And again, it goes back to the problem from the abutter from the last meeting that there's water running off and ponding. And it is. We observed that over the last couple of weeks, and it's a problem that really does need to be addressed.
So thing that you've drawn on here to kind of redirect it, I agree with you. This proposal from 1982 to have the water run underneath the driveway there wouldn't fit with kind of the way
No.
we approach those things today.
I wouldn't today, and I agree with that.
Is this intended to be a swale that's going to withhold the water, or is this a berm that would impound it? What is it that you drew here?
What we're anticipating, because there is a bit of a mound coming out the south side of the building. So the intention here was to divert the water using a berm into that area just to the side of the stairway, where we would dig basically a catch basin with rocks. So if you understand what I mean, basically a hole with rocks in it with a pipe leading to the other side of the raised mound, and then a swale. Again, what I envision is riprap in a swale to whatever size necessary that the engineer would determine.
Okay.
So we have enough land behind the building, I believe, to accommodate any runoff. And actually, the soils around the railroad bed itself are very porous. They seem to absorb water very well. Again, our intention is also to maintain the back of this building where the original spur was located. In our discussions with the fire department, they considered the overgrowth to be a fire hazard. So again, it's another part of our plan is to work with the fire department to make sure that that is clear of vegetation.
So I guess I'm thinking through the staff's response to this, where we don't have the drainage structures that were originally designed for the site. And we're going to add some that are well-intentioned, but we don't really know whether they'll work. And as a planning board, I'm not sure how to approach that in terms of what we support or what we could approve, and does it meet with our standards, which require that we do know how the drainage would work. That's the puzzle I'm stuck on. I don't know if you have any thoughts to.
All I can say is that for 40 years, it's existed this way. All right? And no one in the town or none of the abutters ever complained about it or cited it as a problem, because it would have been known. So what I'm really asking for is a couple more months of to fix the problem. All right, I recognize it. Again, I've been in this industry for about 40 years myself. I've seen every kind of problem. This can be fixed relatively easily. It's a shame it wasn't done when it was approved in 1982. But again, the people who should have been following up probably aren't even around anymore.
No, I agree with that. This is you're inheriting somebody else's mess, and it's
again,
it's
all
not
I can
fair.
say is that it's our intention to fix it. But in order to do that, we need to get this business in. All right, we're 3 weeks away from being without a home. We barely have enough time to get the work done that needs to be done. And again, it's no one's fault. I understand the reason for the continuance. I understand the deficiencies in the plan, which, believe me, we fixed them.
Yep.
We did spend a fair amount of time going over everything on the plan. And with that one exception, which was, again, something that was not done back when the original plan was approved, with that one exception, we have an acceptable plan.
Yeah, I don't argue with you there, and I think you're actually in kind of this weird situation where had the 1982 improvements been built, it would be pumping all your water across the roadway to somebody
Yes.
else's. Sending
It would be a bigger problem than it is today. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I suspect that in 1982, perhaps the same owner owned both parcels, or somehow came to terms with being able to put your water on somebody else's property or
and
on
I
another
think he
parcel.
did.
But
I think that was the case, but it is not the case today.
yeah, and I think the driveway down to the electrical substation wasn't there either, so it wasn't nothing to cross.
And the pavement doesn't extend all the way down to the crossing. It ends about 50 feet short.
Yep. Yeah, I think that you're definitely inheriting a mess. I had some discussion with the staff about various options to figure out what you're talking about with a commitment where you're going to come back and do some more, and can we have some kind of an interim solution? And the challenge that we have is once we vote on it, there's nothing that compels you to do any of those things that you talked about doing with the further development of the site and all of that.
Well, there actually is, because as I mentioned right in the beginning, I'm gonna be back here in 6 weeks. All right, asking for another, for approval of another plan, okay?
I mean,
that-
I understand that's everybody's intentions, but
Oh, believe me, I had no reason to try to
no, nobody
mislead
ever
you.
does. But sometimes the world just deals you the turn of fate where.
Me like this?
Yeah. No, but nobody ever does, have a reason to try to, lead us in the wrong direction. But
No, I
there's
would-
any number of times where people's intentions just sort of don't play out that way.
Would you like a bond?
I don't even know if we could. If
I
we
don't
have a
even know if you
provision
could do
would allow
that
us to
either,
take
but,
one.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, we have performance.
I've done it
bonds
with
for
other planning
purposes, but-
boards, so, and again, it's all about performance, all right? And again, as I sit here before you, I will personally make sure that this happens.
I was even asking the staff about whether the engineered designs could be a condition of approval for tonight, and that isn't within our range of possibilities either. Does anyone have other thoughts or plans? I mean, I think it's a terrible situation to be in where they may be losing their space, or are losing their space where they are, and they need a place to go. At the same time, the plan, because of what was not built in 1982 and not really knowing what it needs to fix it. I agree, you got plenty of land here. There's a solution. There's an engineering
There's a
solution to anything.
There's no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, I talked to the engineer, and
Yep.
there's a solution for it.
Yeah, I have no doubt about
I
that.
just need time.
I don't know how to make more time.
I don't either.
Nelson, what are your thoughts?
But,
Anybody
no,
else have thoughts?
I-
I'm struggling because I really want to find some route to relief. I just haven't landed on one that I think is supported by our regulations, and what we're
I'm
required
okay
to do.
with that.
What's that?
I'm okay if it's not supported by your regulations.
Well, I'm sure the abutters might not
I mean,
be.
the fact of the matter is, literally, there's gonna be a big push over the next 3 weeks, both to fix the problems that the building inspector and fire inspector have identified to us. But again, we can't even move forward with that unless this board allows us to move forward with that. So, it's really work that needs to be done. The building is not compliant in several different ways. And again, the owner's gonna be putting probably $50,000 to $100,000 into this building in the next 6 months. All right? And that
Yep.
doesn't even include his moving cost. So, again, it's critical that he not miss out or lose a month of his operation. Believe me, it just defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, I
And-
get that. In a minute, while we're sort of thinking this through, we do have to have a public hearing and take some testimony from abutters.
Yes.
And we've received some written testimony. Has this been shared with you?
When I walked in the room, I was given a copy.
Okay,
And I
so you
did
have
have
a
a
copy?
chance to look through it, and if you'd like, I'll address it before your public comments.
Well, no, don't do that. Let the people make their comments before you tell them what your response will be. Let's
Okay.
hear the testimony. But I'm sympathetic to the idea that there's a lot of material here, and trying to come up with a response to it on the fly in the middle of a meeting where it was just handed to you is a lot to ask. But
Well,
at the same time, giving you time to go read it and come back next time isn't what you want either.
No, I can't
So-
afford it. I really can't. And actually, I read it. I understand it. I'm willing to comment on it, even though it only took 10 minutes, because
Okay.
really, it's older than what I have.
May well be. Let's let the
Certainly.
person that's offering the testimony speak to it first, and then we'll hear from you as your response. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? Either one. You can sit at the table if you like.
Hi, my name is Richard Calica. I'm an abutter. I represent Calica LLC.
Good to see you again. I think it's
Nice
been
to-
about 5 years since you were here before.
Yes.
So-
By the way, 5 years ago, the drainage issue was attempted to be addressed with the town when they repaved. So it has been brought up in the past. A couple of issues that I have is I talked to the person who owns the parcel across the street, which is tax map 3D1-7. I have an easement across that property, and I've been trying to contact him He finally called me today. He's on vacation and won't return until Friday. And that's the Larry Doty from the Doty Group. And he said he was never noticed of this proposal.
The 3D17?
Yeah, that's across the street.
Yep, I see it.
There's an issue with the additionally, there's an issue with the turnaround. If you look at the deed of, Nessim Joseph is the trustee of NP Associates Realty Trust that actually owns the property. The deed shows that it's burdened by the turnaround easement on Plan 7687, recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds. That burden has not been removed, and the plan that exists shows most of the parking that they plan to use, including the swale, in that turnaround easement. The turnaround easement shown on the plan proposed doesn't exist, and there was a plan that was registered in. Hang on, give me 1 second. It's in Exhibit 2 of what I sent in. I think it's Exhibit 2. Sorry, Exhibit 4 of what I sent in. That was dated approximately around that time, that is recorded in the Registry of Deeds, that proposed the plan that, the turnaround that he's showing here. But that proposal was dropped. The landowner never signed this. And the deed was relieved. Now, the owner of the existing parcel, M&P Associates Realty Trust, purchased not only this property with the burden of the easement shown on Exhibit 2, he also purchased the parcel just west of it, which is 3D-1-8, with the burden of that turnaround easement on that parcel as well. So the owner is aware of the burdens of that easement on the parcel. My concern, well, Mr. Doty has even more concerns with, after I talked to him today, he'll be back Friday. I don't know when he'll address it, but probably in the next week. My concern is I have rights, crossing rights, across those tracks. And I need to protect my land. I also have agreements with other landowners back there. PSNH's driveway is actually a non-exclusive easement over my property. I own the parcel directly across from the tracks and have agreements with other landowners. And so when you start moving water that's towards the back of the property that's near that crossing, it becomes an issue. And it opens up a large section of property. You're talking close to 17 acres, I think it is, that opens up back there. It also opens up to the land that was donated to the town by the Sklar Group, I believe, which is even a larger parcel. I think that's a 30-some-odd acre parcel.
You mean on the other side of the tracks?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, that Sklar parcel depends on the, there's a bridge as you get off exit 11 that wraps around and goes underneath but floods often. The only access that is deeded across the railroad is, we have 2 deeded access rights across it. One is at Star Drive.
Okay.
And that's my concern, that we're dealing with a plan that was not registered, does not show the proper easements, the burden on the property, and you're looking to now put parking lots in what is basically the public way, which is the turnaround of Star Drive.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Calica.
I'm going to stay around for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Calica? Nelson,
Well,
go ahead.
no, there's a lot here, and I probably have a lot of questions, but.
Yeah, there is a lot here, and I
there's a-
tried to read through it, and I've
Yeah.
gathered up some sense of things, but I don't know that I fully understand all the things that you presented, although my compliments in the way that you organized it. It's extremely well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for providing
I'm
that.
sorry it was so late. I just, took me a while to pull everything together. I had records in storage and everything else that I had to pull out, and then, anyway, I'm sorry I got it here before the meeting, this afternoon.
That best you can do.
Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you.
Are there other abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in?
Oh. Mr. Doty said he would like to appear when noticed.
Okay. Robert, have you been able to, I saw you over there peeking at notices as soon as you heard that.
Yeah, and it seems that he's correct. So we have the abutters list that was provided by the applicant, and it looks like the previous property owner was listed. So the previous property owner was sent notice. Looks like that property conveyed in September of last year. So the wrong person was sent a notice, so Mr. Doty was not notified.
Okay. We'll hear from the applicant on this a little bit, but if we have a defective notice, we may be stuck anyway.
Well, all I can say is I got this information at the town hall. So if the records that I reviewed were not up to date, again, there's nothing I should be held responsible for.
We're using that computer at the desk
Yes,
downstairs?
that's
what I
exactly
do
what
when
I
I've been
use. I
here and
checked
done
every
that.
single one.
And that would also be correct. So if assessing, for some reason, came across a deed and entered it very recently, and the only thing I can do is go and check with them as to when they did this stuff. But we are stamped as having received the information initially as of May of 2021. So it is possible, I know assessing does get backed up, but they're the only ones who can answer the question as to when they entered that information. I don't know why it would take them so long, but it is possible.
So, I had never actually encountered this question from a legal standpoint. When someone's required to give a butters notice to a butters, what are they permitted to rely on in terms of being the actual source of information?
Information that is accurate, the actual town records at the point when they are putting the list together. So he is correct in that he is protected if the information in the system, in the town system, was accurate physically at town hall, which he's been in our office multiple times. I can attest to that.
There's no reason to
So-
think if he was standing there getting the rest of the list that he, decided to, I don't even know, because the name of the previous owner would no longer be in there had the new information been in. So it wouldn't have come from thin air to
Right.
have the name of the prior owner. Okay. I think we probably don't have defective notice based on what we're hearing tonight, but, grab a microphone, Mr. Mr. Calica.
Comment. In doing abutters notices, I've done them before. It's a state of New Hampshire, and you have to rely on what is recorded in the Registry of Deeds. And the recording is there you can look it up online on nhdeeds.com. But it's in the registry, and that's where you find your abutters, because that has the most up-to-date notice.
Unfortunately, that's not the requirements of the town, which is to use their database.
Well, the requirement is to protect the abutter, and if the abutter does not have notice, he is not protected. It's not looking to protect the applicant, it's looking to protect the abutter. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Calica, for that. I don't think that you can find abutters using the Registry of Deeds because it doesn't have a map.
Yeah, the RSA 676-4 IB is abutters are required to be as indicated in the town assessing records not more than 5 days before the date of filing. That's the language straight out of the law. So if the abutters list was prepared by the submittal deadline, which is how we accept the planning board applications within the 5 days, then the case can be made that the information was correct in the system and updated by assessing sometime between May and now.
Yeah. And that seems to be what I think likely to happen because, again, if you go to that database and you run a search and it comes up with John Doe, if it had been updated, you would never even know that name.
I wouldn't even know the previous owner's name, that's correct.
You'd never know the previous owner's name, so that had to be what the computer spit out at you.
It did.
But there can be any other number of reasons why things are
Yes.
hard to find in that database at times. Heaven help you if you get condo as an abutter. Okay. Speak to what you know about the
Yes,
turnaround.
I'd be
and
more
that
than
issue.
happy to. First of all, I did have a chance to glean through it, and being familiar with some of the plans and the layout of the parcels, I pretty much absorbed what he was talking about. And it is true that if you go back to 1974, which is almost 50 years ago, there was apparently provisions for a temporary turnaround on the parcels that were referenced in Mr. Kalika's memo. However, that obviously has changed, okay? That was never put into practice. The evidence now of the plan that was accepted by the board in 1982 shows that the turnaround is where it exists today. If you were to go out to the site today, it's exactly as it's shown on the plan. Mr. Kalika is referencing a temporary turnaround that's over 50 years old. I have not researched the records to see if that was ever temporarily removed or if it had expired or anything like that, but his claim is kind of silly, because even a temporary turnaround, for 40 years, this parking lot has been used by various businesses without regard to there being something that may have been withdrawn ages ago. I don't understand his concern for what is happening across the railroad tracks from his property. I understand his concern about access, and as I addressed that earlier, on the 1982 plan, there would have been a drainage swale where the road now is. And obviously, somewhere along the way, someone made some decisions to make that change and complete the dirt road and create the crossing. And obviously, the abutter made provisions to allow that because he granted an easement for people to cross his land. So for him to bring up drainage concerns which were neglected 40 years ago, which I'm saying right before the board today, we're gonna fix, all right? And the only way we can fix it is for you to let us move forward. We're gonna address his issues despite all of these references to deeds and anything else. Really, it's immaterial to what we're talking about here today, because he's concerned, and Mr. Doty may also be concerned as the new owner of the parcel across the street, with water going across the street. We want to fix it, really do. So, again, I'm going to ask the board, despite your reservations, and I know you have a lot of them, all right? We're bringing a new business into town. The business has been in business for 30 years. It's a thriving concern. It's going to take a building that's been neglected for the last 30 or 40 years and bring new life to it. Our intention is to bring another tenant in to occupy a portion of the warehouse. So again, more business for Merrimack. And all I'm asking for is the ability to move forward. Because if you put them out of business tonight, then we're going to be stuck. We won't have the money to go forward. We can't fix the problems that we all agree should have been fixed 40 years ago. So that's what I'm asking. I'm asking for your understanding. I'm asking for your approval. I'm asking for you to have some measure of trust, all right, in both myself as his representative and the business owner who's sitting in the audience behind us, that we will do what is right. We will not be like the previous owners and ignore what the town of Merrimack is trying to accomplish. We're looking for a harmonious relationship. I'm going to be back here, I promise. And that's all I can say.
Thank you to your comments on this idea of a temporary turnaround. I don't know what other board members have thought of that, but my two observations, one is similar to yours and one's a little bit different. The notion that there's an indication on a previous plan about a temporary turnaround is exactly that. It existed for some transient
reason,
purpose,
yes.
and when that purpose was completed,
The
it
plan
didn't exist anymore.
overtook it, yeah.
Yeah, you know, events overtook it, and certainly a follow-up plan. The other thing that it occurs to me with this is if this building's been here 40 years, as you've suggested that it has, and every reason to believe that it has, and the pavement is as it's configured on this plan, then anyone who had easement rights over the parking lot and part of the building had notice of an adverse claim to that property, and 21 years is all it takes for that adverse claim to die. So with the passage of time and the physical construction of a building and parking spaces where the supposed temporary turnaround was to be, it's all the notice in the world to anybody that might claim some rights to that they've got to act on it. And now it's 1974 to now is far, far too long for those things to be of concern. So I'm not persuaded that I have to worry about the turnaround. The drainage piece, I think, is important to think about how it will function. I'm not necessarily worried about things on the other side of the railroad tracks. Drainage is not going to flow across railroad tracks. But will it block the access road or somehow impair that driveway? And that's the question. I just don't know, because no part of the drainage here was either engineered or built.
I agree.
And then we're sort of stuck with guessing what should we approve. And I guess I'm more inclined to say don't modify it than modify it in a way where, some, non-professionals just sort of said, well, maybe let's try this.
I
It's
don't
almost
wanna
better
do
to leave
that.
it alone than to mess with it, even with all the right intentions.
Again, there's two things here, all right? One is to be able to get for the business to move into the building and start operations. So that's one factor that, again, that's what I'm looking for more than anything else. The second is to try to design and install proper drainage on the site, which has never been done. If you can make your approval contingent on providing you with a plan, I'd be more than happy to do that, because it's something that really does need to be done. We recognize that. But it will never get done if we can't move forward.
I have like I said, tried to have some discussions with staff to figure out some options, and we have in the past tried to do some things where we require an applicant to come back before the board for whatever to demonstrate compliance with things, and it's always ended in a confused, muddy mess for us to try to figure out what to do, or what are we trying to accomplish with this compliance hearing kind of a concept. We have also had some applications where there were some unapproved or non-compliant features on the property that weren't associated with what the applicant was after. And we, in those cases, considered granting approval with a specific note that says we're not approving the thing over here on the other side that doesn't have anything to do with the thing, and then that has to be dealt with in a future application. I wish that there was a way to take you up on the offer to say you're coming back in a few months and you'll address the things there. I believe you, but in terms of what the board has the power to enforce, if
Right.
you didn't,
Right.
we're powerless with that, and so we've got to make a decision tonight as if we'll never see you again, and that's kind of what we're faced with. Mr. Kellick, I see you raising your hand, but the public comment period's closed. And that's why I'm not calling on you. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but we've received the public comments. I don't know, board members, let's just have some discussion and see what you guys think of in terms of what the situation we're in and what it is that, if anything, we should do with it or about it. Does anyone have any comments?
I'll give you some comments, but
Nelson,
they're
let's
not
have
gonna
it.
solve the problem. I'm sorry to say. I completely understand and sympathize with what's going on here, and I don't think we can solve it satisfactorily tonight either way. Either we say no, and then we have what we have, or we take a chance and see if we can get something better, which is getting this whole thing fixed. So I'm reluctant, but I think I sort of lean toward letting them do it. Letting them go without a site plan, or
Yeah.
with this site plan as is. Yeah.
You know,
I
one of the
would-
things you just said is important that I didn't even think about, but if we do vote no, then this is gonna stay the way it is for another 10 years. How many
Yes.
years with drainage doing whatever it does and not built according to the plan? Maybe the staff goes around, chases the owner of this thing for being out of compliance with a 1982 site plan.
I'm not even sure the 82 site plan would work today. You know, the whole drainage calculation business has changed.
It has.
And there may be more water coming in here than that system could handle. And so,
Yeah, the addition of the driveway changes things, and the notion
Yeah.
that if he tried today to get out here with a excavator and build what's on this plan, he's gotta put his water on the property on the other side of the access driveway.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that who
oh,
owns
no,
that
you
and what they would
can't
think of
do-
it.
You can't do that,
So we couldn't, yeah, you couldn't hold him to comply with the 82 plan.
yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I think we'd have to just approve it without a revised site plan. That's what we'd have to do, I think.
Yeah, waive full site plan
Waive
review, put a
yeah.
note on it to say we don't bless the drainage system.
And we don't have a drainage system that works on this site today. You know.
Barbara, what are your thoughts?
Just wondering, when do you meet with the engineers regarding the drainage?
I've already met with him.
Okay.
He's already
And
been
when
out.
is he owing you a plan?
We get approval tonight, I send him a contract tomorrow, I'll have it in 4 to 6 weeks. Because I'm planning on going to the zoning board in the end of August, beginning of September. So that's when I'm going to need a new plan. So
What do you
I-
need from the zoning board? What
Yeah.
relief do you need from them?
The owner of the property actually has a dealer's license. So he's gonna ask permission, it's not an approved use in that zone.
An automobile dealer's license.
An automobile, actually, it's a motor vehicle. It covers trucks,
Okay.
planes, boats, and he dabbles in all of the above. Again, most of it's off-site, internet nowadays. So we're not anticipating storing anything on the property other than maybe a few vehicles for a couple days in transit. But again, it'll be fine for where it is. And again, with the additional parking that we're proposing, it should accommodate both uses easily. Secondly, we have a warehouse user that has expressed interest in renting 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. So, clearly the owner's only occupying 8,500 of it. Again, he has to maintain ownership or control of another portion of it to meet his SBA loan application guidelines. So we'll be renting out approximately somewhere up, I think the maximum we can do is like 10,000 square feet. So again, we're gonna be coming back here because it's in the plan. It doesn't work without it.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah, I had
Barbara?
another thought. The whole thing about the turnabout, if you see the picture that's in our packet, there's no room in there to turn around anything. I don't even think I could bring my Toyota in there and turn it around. So, that doesn't affect me at all.
You mean the satellite picture?
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff
There's
in there.
stuff all over that.
I think all of that granite has gone away, but I don't know that for sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
I don't
has.
know either. I
It
haven't
has all
driven
gone
down
away.
there in a bit.
Okay.
And if you notice, the land there is wet. So I'm not seeing where that water is crossing the road. So that's something for your engineer to take a look at?
Oh, yes.
On where is the water coming from?
And again, actually, myself and the owner have observed it over the last couple of weeks because we've been there during some storms.
Is it draining through?
It rained
Yeah.
a little bit over
It
the
was
weekend.
handy,
It did,
wasn't it?
I know.
Yeah. And is it
And-
draining off of your land
Yes,
over? Okay.
absolutely. And again, no denying it. I have pictures of the puddles, and that's
Right.
what we're gonna try to fix.
And I am leaning toward, as you said, Mr. Chairman, that this problem has been around for many years, and it wasn't fixed when it should have been fixed. And now, it's not that the new owner is going to be held harmless, it has to be fixed. But in many respects, I don't think it's a positive way to start a new business in town by handicapping him when he needs to be able to continue his business. So, do you have your firstborn child handy? Because we'll take him.
I'd gladly give them up.
So, you know, those comments, it's clearly in the public's interest to see this drainage problem get fixed. And here as a planning board, we've got an option for which it will not get fixed, and an option where which at least it might, and maybe even probably will get fixed. And so, you know, that's one way to analyze it and try to consider it for us.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes down to, yeah.
Well, if that seems to be the consensus of folks, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually going to put forth a motion if there are no other questions.
I was just going to steer us in the procedural route. We would have to vote to waive full site plan review, and then we would vote on some final disposition, if that's the will of the board to do that.
Yes.
Paul, call on you then.
I'd like to put forth a motion that the board grant the waiver for full site plan review, giving that strict conformity would pose a necessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Is there a second for Paul's motion?
Second.
You got the last one. Nelson can have this one.
Okay.
Nelson Disco has the second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? 5-0-0 to do that. So that's the waiver of full site plan review. What's the role of the board with respect to final disposition?
I think we want to deny this, right?
No, we would grant his change of use and allow him to do his trailer business here if we were going down the path that we were discussing.
Without any site plan.
But to add in, this is our site plan, we're just adding a note to it to say we're not approving anything that related to the drainage structures on the south part of the site, if we chose to go down that path. Or were you thinking we were doing something different?
No, I think that's pretty much what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, we don't want them to build that drainage system. That's
Correct.
there, okay? That's for sure. And so I think we just want to, what would we do? We would approve it without the drainage structures? Is that how you'd like the motion to be?
I would think that first we would add a note to the plan to say that the planning board's approval of July 6,
Yeah.
2021 does not encompass approval of any form of the
Yeah.
drainage structures.
Yeah,
And then if that's passes and that's the will of the board, then you would vote on approval of that with that new note on it.
yeah.
And then when the applicant comes back, he's picking the ball up from there.
Yeah, wouldn't it be just one motion that you could approve this?
Yeah, we don't need to actually vote on the note as long as we all agree that
Yeah.
that's what we want a note to say and Robert has the
Yeah.
language that he would think
Yeah.
appropriate.
So, since staff didn't put any recommended language for an approval in this memo, I can make note of, in whatever motion gets made, if you choose to approve, suggested language from the previous memo, which did have suggested comments. I just have to kind of revise them at the table as I'm reading, since some of these comments have already been addressed.
Okay, so there is a comment that deals with not offering approval of any part of this drainage?
No, but what I was thinking of adding something that says along the lines of applicant shall not construct, nor does the board approve any drainage infrastructure as shown on the plan. And we can go through the dates and whatnot that this plan is, that
Okay,
was
a
provided.
note like that would suit me. I'd be happy with that. We could leave that to the staff to figure out what the note ought to say. Barbara?
And do we add any wording, or do we need a separate motion that holds the applicant to come back with the plan for the drainage?
So I think we can certainly say the applicant's made that representation to us. Actually compelling the applicant to come back is where we're beyond our jurisdiction to
Okay.
force him to do it.
Yeah.
So as much as I would
I'll
like
be
to,
back.
yes. And, you know, you don't want to be that untimely fellow that appears here with
No.
unkept promises.
Promise.
We understand what we want our note to be. If that's, everybody's happy with that, then it would be appropriate to consider a motion to grant conditional final approval subject to the staff's comments and the new note. Is anyone willing to make such a motion?
I'll make that motion. Yeah.
Nelson makes that motion. Is there a second? Second by Barbara. Further discussion? The only thing that I would offer is that your approach to this with being kind of an open book and saying what you've got plans to do and admitting the
Absolutely.
problem and all of that has done your client a great service. I think if you were trying to skid around this and be cute about the approach to it, it would be hard to support what you're trying to do.
I understand.
And I think the discussion we've had here with, do we keep what we've got or do we try for an improvement is really the balance that's swinging in your favor today. With that in mind, if there's no other comments, Robert?
So do I need to, I think at this point, I have to add the comments to the memo, or to your motion that we would typically have in a motion like this, because you can't just reference the memo in this case, because we have no comments in there.
Okay.
So I would suggest that the board adds standard boilerplate conditions of approval. And I hate to have to read it, but I'm going to have to make it official.
Go for it.
Final plans to be signed by all property owners. The appropriate professional endorsements and signatures shall also be added to the final plans as applicable. The applicant shall obtain all required state approvals and permits as may be applicable. Note the approvals and permits on the plan and provide copies to the Community Development Department. Any waivers granted, including the waiver of site plan review, section and date granted, or any changes requested by the board shall be listed and fully described on the plan as applicable. The applicant shall provide draft copies of any legal documents for review at the applicant's expense by the town's legal counsel. Applicant shall address any forthcoming comments from Merrimack Village District, Public Works Department, the Wastewater Division, Fire Department. The next comment would be, the applicant shall address any conditions made by the planning board during the public hearing, which we just heard that note, so that would be added. And in terms of the actual plan itself, I guess I would ask the board, do you want the applicant to erase the little line that they drew on, or we're just gonna leave that alone with the plan as it sits? And just add that last note that we talked about the applicant shall not construct and the board not approve any drainage infrastructure as shown on that plan.
I think we ought to take off the hand-drawn addition here for now, since that's not really what we want built and approved. Let's
Yeah.
just leave it the way that it was.
Okay. So then I'll have a second note saying that the applicant shall revise the plan to eliminate the hand-drawn
Absolutely.
drainage changes. The rest of the notes, I think as we've discussed before, are probably sufficient.
All right, I'll be in to
So-
see you, Robert.
Barbara?
Yeah, just, I think when you and the engineers sit down and the owners sit down to do the plan for the drainage, you need to get in touch with Mr. Kalika. Hope I said that correctly. Okay, because it seems that there are a lot of informal arrangements going on down there as to who's crossing the railroad tracks, or who's using that road. And as a good neighbor, you don't want to impinge your drainage on any of those
Absolutely.
arrangements going on. So,
I will keep him involved
Okay.
as the plan
Okay.
evolves.
thank you.
I forgot the general and subsequent conditions. The other ones were precedent that would have to be done before the plan could get signed and
Yes.
before you could occupy the property. The next three are just the stuff that you'd have to keep in mind as a subsequent permitting, basically, question. Condition, rather. So, one, any proposed easements or applicable legal documents shall be recorded at the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds at the applicant's expense. Applicant shall address any comments from the fire department as related to building fire code compliance, sprinkler system, building addressing, et cetera, as applicable that are not deemed precedent conditions. And three, the applicant shall address any forthcoming comments from the building department as related to building code compliance and permit application as applicable that are not deemed precedent conditions.
Okay. Robert, is there any comment that we could add there that allows the staff some latitude if there's some discovered condition you wish you had just read that you forgot to read?
I went through, not really. Because that opens up too many ways for us in the future to be, that would sound good while I'm sitting there.
I got you.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
no.
Are you satisfied with that, or do you need more time to?
I am. I read that language from the original notice, or the memo from the staff prepared the last time around.
Okay.
So the only thing I omitted was the planning staff technical comments, which I am confident have all been addressed by the applicant since that meeting.
Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, then it's time for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500. Thank you for your presentation. I look forward to seeing you in a couple months and getting a real solution on this. Live up to your commitment on that.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. And glad to have your applicant business in town.
I am also. I'll be back, I promise.
Okay. Item 5 on our agenda is, let me read it into the record, even though we won't hear that item today because of a defect in the notice. Robert and Karen Curry, as the applicants and owner, review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a 2-lot subdivision. The parcel is located at 2 Country Road in the R1 Residential by Map and Aquifer Conservation Districts. Tax map 3A, lot 65-1, case Planning Board 2021-25. And again, because of a defect in an abutter notification, that will have to get deferred to a later meeting. That doesn't require any vote on our behalf, Robert, right?
Right.
Then, item 6 on our agenda is L&F Realty Trust as the applicant and owners. Review for acceptance and consideration of a site plan amendment to modify site lighting and add additional pavement and related improvements. The parcel is located at 396 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, R4 Residential, Aquifer Conservation, and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. Tax map 4D3, lot 32, case Planning Board 2021-26. Robert, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just by way of summary, this application is the result of a service request that was submitted to our department last winter, springtime. Complaint originated that there was excessive lighting coming from the property, shining up into the homes above the property on East Chamberlain Drive at the rear. So upon investigation, we did find some floodlights had been installed on the Eversource utility poles along Daniel Webster Highway. But in addition to that, we also noticed that some new pavement had been installed toward the rear of the site, and none of that was done with site plan approval. So we sent a letter to the applicant hired an engineer, and they are presenting this plan to try to correct those issues.
All right, is the applicant here? Hey, Matt.
All right.
Welcome.
Good evening. Matt Peterson with Keach Norsham Associates. Just to give the board what Robert just went through there, these are lights that go up and down Daniel Webster Highway. The gas station's got them. The next site's got them. I think they've probably been in place for about 20 years or so. My client called to have a bulb replaced. They came out and put one of the new fluorescent lights and then lit up the world. So that's where we got the complaints. I think
Who
on
did you
top
call
of
to
the
replace it? Oh, make sure your microphone's turned on.
Yep, it is. Sorry, I'm just not talking into it loud enough.
Who do
They
you call
called
to replace the bulb?
the power company that has them up there, the ones that have them all installed right now.
So these are PSNH's lights on the
Yes.
power poles?
Yeah, within the town right away. So I don't know what they did back in the day, but that's kind of how they installed them and stuff like that. So
You know, we encountered that in that car dealership all the way down by DCU, where they had lights that came from nowhere.
Right. My understanding from the owner of the property is that I guess you can request a light from Eversource, and they will install it for you. You can pay a leasing fee to them. So it seems that's what he relayed to me back in the spring, is that that's what he had done, and he'd be happy to remove them because he doesn't have to pay for the leasing fee anymore. So he'd be happy to get it resolved.
So once you do that, once Eversource puts a light up there with no site plan approval, they charge the people rent for their light. Oh, boy. What a deal. All right, thanks, Matt.
also on this application, I was under the impression we were going to continue this to August 17th. My applicant didn't pay the escrow fee till last Thursday. It's now been submitted, but review hadn't started yet. So I did not bring a presentation for tonight because I was under the impression we were just continuing it till the 17th.
Okay, so do you want to continue the acceptance and the
I would like,
consideration?
that would work out for both, yep.
Okay, that sounds fine with me, because then we don't dive into asking and answering questions or public testimony and all of that. So if the applicant's requesting a continuance to August 17th, what's the will of the board?
Move we grant the
Continuous.
request.
To continue both the acceptance
Continue.
and the consideration to
Yes.
August 17th. Is there a second? Second. By Barbara. Robert, is that all? You look focused on something like I did something wrong. That's the face that makes me wonder what I just did. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 5-0-0. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, that was number 6. Item number 7 is Merrimack Parcel A LLC as the applicant, and Merrimack Parcel A LLC and Slate Merrimack Acquisition LLC as the owner. Review for consideration of an amendment to an approved site plan to modify previously approved locations of pedestrian sidewalks. The parcel is located at 10 Premium Outlets Boulevard in the I-2 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation District and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 3C, lots 191-2 and 191-2U1 and through 2U4. Case Planning Board 2021-27. Robert, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just in brief, the board may recall the applicant was recently before you with a request to waive the installation of the sidewalk in the area along Industrial Drive due to conflicts with the DOT in terms of maintenance. However, they since have withdrawn that request and are now here before you with a formal plan to relocate that sidewalk.
All right. Please introduce yourself, and when you're ready with your presentation, please proceed. And this time I am going to move to where I can watch it because I don't
Okay,
like
thanks.
the little TV.
Yeah, everybody's good for seeing. Good evening. My name is Dave Fenstermacher from VHB. I'm here tonight presenting on behalf of Merrimack Parcel A LLC regarding the Merrimack Park Place. Really here today, as Robert said, to speak really about the sidewalk. There is an overall sidewalk network throughout the site, but today we're talking to you specifically about the section that runs along Industrial Drive. As Robert mentioned, this was part of the approved plan. We originally, sorry, you see this yellow? This was the approved plan where the sidewalk just came along the DOT right-of-way, connecting to the Premium Outlet Boulevard sidewalk. And as part of this, we needed to go to DOT for some approvals because it's work within the right-of-way. And from there became the conversations with DOT and the town and town council. And from there, it was kind of recommended. I'll leave the legal terms for Jay because I'm indemnify, right? So basically what DOT wanted, it was for the town to take responsibility of a sidewalk in the DOT right-of-way. So we originally discussed, do we need this piece? Because it's really, not a lot that we're connecting to, but, after working with the applicant and the owner, it made a lot of sense just to keep the sidewalk. But what we did is just brought it up within the site along the back of the sidewalk, and then we connect to the Premium Outlet Boulevard. So it's really giving us the same connectivity we had before. It's just bringing it on the site, and the town's happy because we don't need to indemnify the sidewalk. And there is, previously, as I said, we were going to DOT because there was sidewalk in the right-of-way. We still have a little bit of grading in the right-of-way, which will require the encroachment permit from the DOT, but we're still going to move forward with that. But that's really the only impact to the DOT piece of it. So, and what we're also here today because there's that 10-foot landscape buffer that's required. I think I can zoom in a little bit here. Along here, without having to redesign the site and the parking and the circulation, what we're looking to do is just pull that sidewalk up, and in this section from here to here, the setback the buffer would be 6 feet rather than 10. But at the same point, we're going to be providing 55 feet of green space between our sidewalk and the Industrial Drive edge of travel way. So so tonight, if you have any questions, but we're really just looking, again, hopefully it's pretty minor, but we're just really looking to pull a sidewalk that's proposed just from the DOT right-of-way onto the site's right-of-way. The applicant is good with taking on that responsibility of the sidewalk. So it really worked out, I think, for the best for all parties, DOT, the town, and the applicant. So I think we could open up for any questions unless Jay had anything to add, but I think he's really here to help with any questions that might come up.
Does any members of the board have questions about this proposal?
So happens. It so happens.
It so happens. Let them have it, Nelson. You got
Okay,
it.
no. I was a little bit, I had a little trouble following your cursor arrow
Aye.
up there.
Yep.
But the way you represented it, I think you are moving the sidewalk on the, I guess if this is north here, this would be the west side of the
Yeah.
property. And then when you come, if you go up the north side, I guess this side here on the left.
On your side?
The left side.
Yeah.
Continental
there.
Boulevard side.
Yeah.
The sidewalk seems to leap off of your property and go on to another
here?
piece of land, Continental Boulevard
Yes.
piece. That's not a
That-
problem.
Because that's outside of the DOT.
Oh, okay.
The DOT takes
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you can kind of see it's a little wedge here along Continental Boulevard.
Yeah,
DOT basically takes from this piece down and around for Industrial Drive as their, so when we talked to them, they had no problem with any
okay,
sidewalk in that
so
area.
I didn't know if you, I
Yeah.
didn't see it on the plan and I was
No.
wondering what would happen.
So they were only concerned with the sidewalk within Industrial Way in this little segment
Yeah.
here.
Okay, now, could you show me one more time, you talked about, I think it would be the east side of the property where you talked about invading the buffer, or
Yeah.
sounded like you were invading the
Well,
buffer.
yeah, there's a sorry, I'm not my normal computer. There's, along this edge, there's a 10-foot landscape frontage strip that's required.
Which edge, I'm sorry, which edge, I can't tell.
So this is the right-of-way along Industrial Drive.
Yep,
Here's our existing parking, which is 11 feet off. So we had
Yeah.
11 feet there of green
Yeah.
space. But now we're showing a 5-foot sidewalk, 6 feet of green space, but we still
Okay.
have, another 49 feet before you get to the roadway of Industrial Drive. And what we're hoping too is that, us pulling the sidewalk out will then allow us to maintain more trees in the DOT right away. So
okay,
that should be supplementing any of that 4-foot buffer that we're
Okay.
losing.
that's clear. Now,
Right.
what about the buffer to the east? All the way up the top of the page here would be east, right?
I think that'd be north, but
North.
with the,
The abutters? Okay, we're not, yeah, I can show you that. Fortunately, we didn't have to touch anything here.
That's what okay,
All right, the only plan changes we had, this is still,
yeah,
this is still untouched. We're leaving that roadway where it is. We're leaving,
okay, no changes.
no changes up there. Really just focused on that lower right corner at the DOT.
Okay.
Because we understand the sensitivity of the rest of the site as
Very good.
approved.
That's all I have. Thank you.
okay. Other comments or questions by members of the board? Okay, we don't have to deal with completeness because it's an amendment of a previous approval. And so there are no waivers requested. We would take public testimony if there's any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in. Going once, going twice, the no abutters weighing in. Close the public hearing, and board members, general discussion or further questions for the applicant? It really is, as much as this has been a complicated site with lots of things going on over the years, this particular little change is kind of
I almost
welcome and minor, so.
I almost said it was going to be straightforward, but I didn't want to go there. But it is.
Yeah,
pretty
don't
straightforward.
curse yourself. So thank you for being willing to work around this problem and solve it with the sidewalk on the site. I know that you never actually presented to us the request for a waiver because you pulled it back and sort of rethought it. But thank you for doing that. It's important to us to have that pedestrian way, and I think the connectivity is going to be useful there. It does have kind of a weird little bend as it goes around the corner of the parking lot right by the drainage
Yeah.
fixture, but no big deal.
It actually might be a nice walk.
Yeah, a little bit more scenic. Put a bench
Walk-
there or something.
Yeah, walk around the detention basin versus along industrial. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's true. So with that in mind, is there a motion to approve this amendment? Nelson?
I will move, Mr. Chairman, that we accept this change to the plan.
Do we have conditions in the
submitted.
staff memo? Yeah, we do.
Oh, we're
Subject to the conditions in the memo?
Oh, I didn't read them carefully. What does it say?
I think it's basically the ordinary.
Final plans and bylaws, grading. We have,
Yeah, I think I covered the piece on the grading and the DOT that
Yeah,
that's still gonna require a
yeah,
permit.
Okay, and, should add a note to the zone. Okay. Yeah, with the conditions as recommended by the staff.
All right, is there a second for Nelson's motion? Gotta be one of you guys. It's not gonna be me.
You can save
right,
them
we'll
all for when
count.
I come back.
We'll count Paul for the second. And I just want to note for the record that the piece about the 10-foot buffer and the sidewalk being within it, because this is a conditional use permit, doesn't require a traditional waiver analysis. So it's just automatically incorporated into the approval of the motion. With that in mind, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 5-0-0. Thank you very much, and thank you for the wait. We didn't keep you here too long. It's almost 8:45. It's not as late as we have been some nights, for sure. Okay. Item 8 on our agenda, Vachi Manukian as the applicant and owner, review for acceptance and consideration of final approval of an amended subdivision that proposes to consolidate and re-subdivide 11 existing lots into 16 lots. The parcels are located on Watkins Road in the R1 Residential by Soils, R2 Residential by Soils, and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 4C, lot 449 through 44912. Case Planning Board 2021-28. Thank you, Matt. Robert, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from Matt?
Just by way of summary, this project was originally before the board in 2016, 17, 18 timeframe. It was approved as a development called Stagecoach Crossing. Today, the road, Watkins Road, has been constructed. It is not yet accepted by the town. And the applicant over time has been working on primarily their main house lot and getting their new residents taken care of there. And now we have been approached with a new plan to amend that subdivision, which, as a reminder, was a cluster development permitted to be on septic system by the zoning board. So they want to consolidate the 11 lots that were in there into re-subdivide it to get a few more lots out of it. I think 5 additional.
Thank you, Robert. Matt?
So, good evening, Matt Peterson again with Keach Norsham Associates, here representing the Watkins Road Consolidation and Re-Subdivision. I just kind of handed you guys out 2 color-ups that I just put together today, just to kind of give you a rough idea of what Robert just outlined to you. I was approached about a year ago to take a look at this. Obviously, the road is in. We're in a really hot market. You would think all the lots would have been sold by now. But I think some of the constraints and designs and things that he was trying to do on this site, I'm not sure that it kind of met what was there. I've been involved the last 5-6 years with Bowers Landing. It's come out very nice, I think, over the last few years. There's been a lot of interest in it. Those units have moved pretty quick. So I kind of thought that this was more of like a 55 and over development instead of a standard single-family kind of lots, because you look at the plan that's in front of you, and this is the one that you guys approved. You know, 2 of the lots at 4 and 6 are a very small 25 by 40 kind of garage, I guess it would be. It's got a garage. They showed a garage to it. I really don't know what they would build on that there. Then you take a look at the rest of the homes, and, you know, you've got the wetland placards basically right behind every single home. I'm not sure how, you know, children and pools and playgrounds and that kind of stuff would really work on that kind of stuff there. So what we would like to do is propose to consolidate the existing. So currently, right now, you have the 11 lots internal that just wrap around Watkins Road. In the plan that I showed you guys here, you have 2, the proposed one and the previous one. The purple is the exact same on both. Oops, sorry about that. So the purple is the exact same, so we are not proposing to touch the open space at all. I left it the exact same way. All we really did was took the footprint, put it on a plan, and then kind of put the lot lines around it. Obviously, in the Bowers project, we don't have any lots. I think this lays out more conducive to what the land has, is what I thought. Obviously, Bill has been talking here. He's living at the house that's there. He's obviously retired. The road is extremely nice, put in, all that kind of stuff that's there. So, you know, kind of get your take and stuff like that, but this is what I went with the client, was to consolidate the 11, re-subdivide them to 16, so it'd be 5 new units. The units are obviously smaller in size than what some of the ones that were proposed on the other 9 lots, besides the 2 small ones that I told you about. And kind of developing something that, again, is a 55 and over feel, but is not restricted to that. If people wanted to have children, that kind of stuff, they could. I've been out to Bowers a lot over the last 5-6 years. There's got to be a kid, I would think, somewhere in there, but I have not seen one yet because they're allowed. So again, if you build it based on your unit, based on the kind of the lots that are there, most people are going to look at that, and you know, it's more conducive to the 55 and over. This doesn't have any road design, any drainage, everything's in. I didn't know it wasn't accepted yet. I kind of thought it was, but there's probably still a top coat that needs to be done at that point, right? Okay. Yeah, so, but that's kind of it. I'll take comments and questions the board have, but that's what we were looking to do, and just kind of move something forward, that a product in town that have been a very nice one. So, thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for the color ups that you provided for these. It really does help visualize it a little bit better. And actually, the one of the new layout of lots is something that I had intended to ask for, which is show me where the homes are going to go and fit in there without intruding on any of the buffers or the because you've got behind the homes on the, where's north in this thing? The northwest part of the parcel have a 200-foot buffer because they're the outer parcels on the cluster subdivision. And obviously that's a huge bunch of space. So the couple of lots by the cul-de-sac have a very, very tight building envelope, and that's pretty much the only place that building can go on those lots. Have you guys investigated enough to know that that building can fit there and there's not any need to shift it around?
Yep, so 2 things. About 6 months ago, my first constraint was, I got to my septic designer and said, hey, listen, before I even bring this to the boards, does this work? So that plan that you guys see there, the 2 D boxes that are next to each house, you can see on most of them there, and then the septic field is actually designed for every single one of these houses. We went out and did 32 test pits the other day. Those are on the plans that you guys have there. Everything was pretty good with the soils that we had dug out there for the day. I will say that we just finished a design up on Lake Winnipesaukee with using a clean solution system. And we actually have those spec'd out for 9 of these homes out of the 16 that we have, would have the clean solution, which is a mini kind of treatment plant nowadays. A lot of the lakes are using and stuff like that because they say you can pretty much drink the water that's coming out of the tank. I don't know that I would drink that water, but, and then it goes to your disbursement field. So once it goes to your disbursement fields are a lot smaller. So if you take a look at like, let's see, we've got the lot, so on the bottom half of the color up that you have here, there's the house to the far right. It has a normal septic field. Okay, that's for a 3-bedroom house. Then if you move over 1, 2, 3 lots, you'll see that there's a septic in the front yard of that one, and it's about half the size. That's the clean solution system there. So it allows you to reduce the size of the disbursement field because you're basically treating the effluent before it goes out. There's a little aerator that goes in your house. It's run by electricity, and these things have been around for about, I want to say 25, 30 years now in New Hampshire, and done them in a lot of different locations. So again, a lot of times around the lakes, but this is a pretty sensitive site here with a lot of wetlands on it, so I thought it kind of made a lot of sense to have as best of facilities as we could.
Is this Clean Solutions technology consistent with our building code here in town?
Yes.
So I know some of the towns with, I forgot what they're called. EnviroSeptics was one company, and there was another company that made another small footprint septic field that
So this is a little different. This was Gary Spalding, worked for DES for many, many years, and he's designed this system. So a lot of the stuff you're talking is just the disbursement field itself, which allows you to decrease the size of if you're using certain materials and stuff like that. This is actually, one of these tanks is your treatment facility. It's got the aerators in it, it's got the balls in it, it's gonna collect all the stuff, so it's a lot different than that system that's there, so yes.
Very good. And you said it's been around for 30 years, huh?
I can get you the exact time next time I show up, but yes, at least that. I mean, I just hit 25 years and it was here when I was here, so, and I made, sorry to say, but that abutter issue was my fault on the county road. I missed an abutter for the first time in 25 years and had to continue that one, so it's
happens.
starting to slip.
It's easier to tell us about it than it is to tell your client.
Yeah.
So is this a more expensive system with the smaller footprint? Why don't you do it in all the houses?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more expensive. The one we just got was $24,000 to install the septic system. So I think you're probably around 15 to 16 with a standard one. So it's about $8,000 more, so.
Okay. Have you analyzed all the driveways in here? I know that it was really slopey and we had to figure out driveways for the houses the last time around.
This plan here, again, this wasn't submitted for review. This was done internally to make sure that all could work, but this all has all the driveways graded and everything like that, so.
Yeah, I see the driveways on here and it looks like you're changing some of the grading quite a bit on these. I see topo lines that are done in dark black over ones that are in light gray.
Yes, the dark ones are the proposed and the lighter ones are the existing that's out there.
Okay. So the driveways to these lots are gonna be more or less level with?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the ones at the end that has a slope going up, but most of these I like to do 2 to 3%. Again, this is more of a 55 and over, so I pulled everything up to the road and stuff like that. I've got a plan, I don't have it on this one here in front of you, but I've got first floor elevations of all the units with the slabs and stuff like that I can definitely supply to the board for review.
What's the slope on the one at the end of the cul-de-sac that's got a few topo lines across it?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I will look into it and get back to you on it.
I think 10 is the maximum permissible
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah.
Did we put sidewalks in here
No, you did not.
before?
Why not?
There actually is a sidewalk constructed on the lower side of the road.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I
My
see it.
bad. You did get that one.
Yep. It goes around to what is now 449-6 along the bottom part of the road. Okay. You've done pretty well answering all my questions. Does anybody else have comments or questions that they'd like to?
Yeah, I have one.
Nelson?
What was the presentation that was made to the ZBA? This is existing by variance.
Yep.
What was the presentation that was made to them look like?
Robert had pulled that stuff beforehand to make sure we looked at this about a year ago and had given us the okay that the variance was to allow these units to be on septic, and that we could move forward with this application that was here.
I think you needed relief for the barn, which is sitting in your 200-foot setback as well.
So there was no limitation on the number of units you could put on this site?
The variance on this section of permanent cluster subdivision to be serviced by private septic systems, whereas municipal sewer is required. The parcel is located at 6 Walken Road, Aquifer Conservation District, case number 2017-09.
For what it's
That's a standard
worth,
approach for the planning board to be in charge of the density of a development.
yeah, if I may, for what it's worth, because it's a cluster, there is a density calculation as a result of all the soils and slopes and everything here that I believe maxes out at 19 units?
18.
18 units. So they are compliant with that.
Yeah,
Other comments, or Barbara?
it's
Yes.
crazy.
So I'm the new kid here, so you're gonna have to help me here. But under 3.08, which is the cluster residential development part of the zoning and building code, first of all, you're supposed to have a total of 15 acres. I don't believe that's the case here. But that, would have been taken care of in the first review. But as far as going on from 11 to 16 units, each unit is supposed to have 40,000 square feet of land per dwelling unit. Based on what was presented to us, I only see like 1 or 2 that are over 40,000. So everything else is like 13, 14, 16. And that does not equal what the standard is for building in this town of Merrimack. So I'm not sure, am I interpreting that correctly?
I think you are.
Yeah, so we'll have Robert weigh in on that. The first comment that you made about the total acreage, there's
Yeah, we're over the.
12 and a half in the conservation lot, so.
Oh, okay, so that gets counted with it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking through everything, trying to figure that part out, but.
But Robert, what's your understanding of the requirement for 40,000 square foot lots for the
I-
cluster piece?
I don't believe that's accurate, is the cluster development is, the idea of it is to use less land for the lots to preserve more for open space. I'm going to go through and try to,
Yeah, pull out the
Find
regulation.
where that is, but
Yeah,
I-
because
We understand.
your previous approved one right here had 27,000, 28, 27, 37,
Yeah.
41, 32, 24, 24, 27, 35, and 41. So there were only two that were actually 40s.
It may be that the 40,000 is how you do your yield calculation.
that's correct. So
Oh.
what it is, it basically reads that the maximum number of units permitted shall be determined by using a density of 40,000 per unit. So they run the calculation based off of that per the land, based on all the other stuff. That's what's
Barbara, if you
noted.
look at note 14 on the color up that I had given you,
Mhm.
that walks through that 40,000 square foot divided by your total area after you take out the
Okay,
wetlands
so
and stuff.
40,000 square feet is like .9183 acres. And I know, because my house sits on
About that, yep.
just about that. So when you're looking at these smaller units, you're talking about maybe less than half.
Oh, you're into quarter acres on some of these little tiny
Yeah,
ones.
they're really, really tiny, and, okay.
And again, they were 27,000 square feet for a single-family home. I am agreeing with you. I think that they were, so I think the unit had to be smaller to fit what they were trying to do
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
And,
When you
Well,
got a postage stamp, you can only fit a postage stamp.
and again, though, there's the 12 acres, the whole thing, and I know this has been, I was a big push on open space subdivisions in the 90s and then the 2000s, and now people have gotten away from them because they think people are cheating on density and this, that. Open space is still 12 acres that goes with all these lots. So when you are looking at your septic loadings and stuff like that, that's all taken in consideration of the overall parcel as well as.
I think there was also some abutting open space land that's in conservation
Cool.
control too, but, Robert?
Just for reference, I pulled up the Greenfield Farm subdivision plan off of Wire Road. I'm looking at this sheet right now off of Orchard Drive, which is the drive that goes straight to Wire Road into Harvest Court, that first cul-de-sac on the right, and I see lot sizes of 10,000, 12,000, 10,000, 11,000, 15,000, 17,000, and 11,000.
I think that, because Greenfield Farms also is not age restricted, but it does sort of bring into that feel where people are just trying to deliberately not have a bunch of yard to mow and maintain and whatever else. There's some open space, there's some field. I can see the animals come and go from time to time, but I've only got a little bit that I've got to take care of. So, besides that, it's the buyer that decides if they want it. Other comments or questions? Barbara? I thought you had another one. I'm glad we were able to clarify that question about the lot size, though, because I was confused by that. Let's see, we don't, this is an amendment, so we don't have to do completeness. There aren't any waivers. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? Going once and twice? Maybe? No? Okay, no abutters that wish to weigh in. Further discussion by the board? My only comment is, I guess I have a bit of mixed feelings. This is a little bit out of the center of town, and there are, it is a really compact footprint to put this many homes in. That said, I don't think anybody outside this subdivision will have any idea how many homes are down there or be impacted at all by a few extra houses squeezed down here. It doesn't have any sight lines or visibility from folks. That won't make a blip on the radar screen for traffic. And so if that's what the market wants, then so be it. I think actually the regrading and the flat level driveways that you proposed is an improvement over what was involved in some of the others, where most of the driveways were not level, and a couple of them had funny little switchbacks and things in them. I think the driveway at the one at the end used to make a big S-shaped curve
Yeah.
in it.
And looking at all the grading for those driveways too, that might have been issues that they had with getting septics and why I wanted to make sure that we actually designed them and looked at it for ours.
Yeah.
Is there a note on these plans regarding the septic design that you referred to?
Nope, there's not, but I can look at that.
What?
There is not a note on it to that effect because I didn't show anything with that, but we can definitely.
I
put
think
that on.
that's gotta be part of this
Yep.
kind of a plan.
So the houses that are on the northwest side, the ones that are facing that 200-foot buffer, how do those folks in that house know that they can't put their lawn 5 feet off the back of their house?
I noticed on your previous application, I did not, but you had required the markers to be placed all the way along those back lines there, and there's quite a few of them shown on these plans here. I'd be willing to add that type of stuff to our plans.
Okay. Especially that one that's at the cul-de-sac where the corner of the house is actually right on the 200-foot buffer. I mean, there literally is, don't put a barbecue out your back door kind of constraints.
I believe that's a 100-foot setback. You
Is it
should
100,
say
whatever it is, it touches the back of the
Yeah,
building.
100-foot setback, yeah. Yeah, which was the same thing on the old one, if you took a look at the little house that was up there, but.
Yeah, it's close. It's not quite as close as it is now, but it was close before. So those notifications that are required, what was required last time for those? That we put markers?
Oh,
on the
yes, you
100-foot
have
buffer?
called out that install wetland buffer plaques. And you put them it looks like about every 50 feet.
So the wetland buffer is to the south, and
Spaced at a minimum of 75 feet.
how about the
Oh, and then the open
property line
space
buffer?
you're saying?
The open space buffer.
You could add that.
So the houses that are on the north and the west of the top part of the road, upper part of the page, that we would do those. Let's say instead of every 75 feet, at least one on every house lot, so that everybody that goes there will go out in their backyard and find one. There's no chance that somebody's neighbors, the ones with the signs.
I wrote down in the
And they
deeds
know
as
what it
well. I
is.
thought.
What's that?
And they know what it is.
Yeah, and they know what it is, yeah. Or just tear that down after a couple of years, nobody will know. That's one of the risks with this. Other comments or questions? Robert, does that kind of accomplish the thing we were talking about?
Yeah, I think so. I just want it specified which lots you want the clean solution septics to be on, so that way we can get the note clarified on the plan.
I will work with staff to give you the ones that are tight. And put a note on the plans, which ones will need it.
Okay. The ones on the color up are not labeled and numbered according to their new lot numbers, but it looks like you can tell by the size of them in the picture.
Yeah, I have staff that's on vacation, and I pieced this together myself, and
No,
the young
understood.
kids are much better at this stuff than I am nowadays.
It looks like there's, yeah, I agree with that. I face the same thing. So there's 2 on the north side of the road and 3 on the south side of the road?
1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5 on the north side.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking about the ones with traditional septics. I was counting the
Traditions would
opposite.
be 1, 2, 3 on the north side, and 1, 2, 3 on the downside. So 3 and 3 for traditional.
Okay. Oh, the one on the end is the traditional as well. I
Mhm.
got it. I lost that one. Is that, Robert, give you enough information to be able to figure it out with them or get them to
Yeah,
tell you what lot numbers?
I'll work with Matt if the board's okay with that to get those lots identified. I
Yeah,
just don't have that
Identify
plan.
them by number, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Other comments and questions? Barbara?
Matt, I see where the emergency access is over on the northwest side, up at the top of the page. There's like 2 areas there. But, you know, it's a 1 road in, 1 road out. So what is the emergency access for those on, what would be the bottom of the run,
I guess I'm
sort of the south side?
confused. There's no emergency access.
And she might be referring to the MVD
That's what I
driveway.
think.
That might be yeah.
So that's just a road that went up, in my understanding, to an old tower that's been
Okay,
removed from
so
that.
there is no emergency
No, this is
access,
built
1 road
24
in,
feet
1
wide.
road out, don't,
Right,
the
cul-de-sac.
trucks will roll over your cars.
Certainly may. I think that this one complied with the length that we allow. The what?
The length.
Fire was happy. Yes, I don't think that we had to put in any additional fire facilities or cisterns or anything in this
Well,
development.
we've got water. They've got hydrants.
Oh, do we have hydrants? So maybe you did exceed the maximum length without a hydrant to have one there.
Do they exceed the maximum length? This looks like it might make it.
Don't know. Let me see the old one.
It isn't longer than the original.
No, the road is exactly the same.
Yeah.
There's no change in the road. But if you've got fire hydrants in here, it would be because the fire department told you you had to have them, which means that you've got more than, what is it, 1,250 feet?
Well, we were bringing in water no matter what, so we were probably putting hydrants for blow-offs, I would guess, at the time. I wasn't involved with them, but.
Yeah, I thought fire required them maybe 500 feet or something like that. Maybe I'm making that up, but.
Here it is. Other comments or questions? Are there any?
No.
If not, are we finished? What's the will of the board? A lot of silence. Either make a motion to grant it, deny it, or continue it. Those are your only three choices. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put forth a motion to grant conditional final approval. I'll find my memo here. With the standard boilerplate notes from Tim's memo.
Is there a second for that motion? Nelson will second it. Okay, further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Barbara, did you vote?
Yeah, I did, I'm sorry.
Did you vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0-0. Thank you for that. And thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. We are up to item 9 on our agenda, which is discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern.
Mr. Chairman, I have something I'd like to bring up.
Yes,
to the
please.
board. I've been a little concerned about our, what's happened with our traffic studies. In particular, last week, or 2 weeks ago, when we were approving the Flatley industrial uses, not industrial, but
Yeah.
so industrial. It came to my attention that nowadays, we're not reviewing traffic the way I think I remember the way we used to. First of all, the review that was given to that particular development was what they're calling a light review or a partial review, or I've forgotten the exact term.
Yeah, there's a term for it. I forgot it as well.
Yeah.
It's,
I believe it's late.
But anyway, it kind of bothers
Yeah,
me
summary
that we're
analysis.
doing that. And I have some concerns about the traffic on that particular development, and on Route 3 in general, but in particular, that particular one. And I didn't realize when we changed our regulations that we were changing to a system that you have sort of an overall review and then you don't look at it anymore. Because basically, we didn't look at the traffic that was being caused by that particular change by that particular aspect of the overall CUP. So that's a concern to me that we're doing it that way, and think we hadn't ought to be doing it that way, and I'd like people to think about that a little bit, because the only traffic thing we looked at on that development was they looked at the speed limit on a day in August that was actually being used out there, and nothing to do with the level of service at the entrances. And it was all said that, well, the state looks at that and we don't have to. Well, I think it's our job to look at it, whether the state looks at it or not. And I'd like some consideration of that by the board.
My own feedback on that, I recuse myself from consideration of the particular application where
yeah.
this issue came to light, but it's
Yeah.
still a larger issue that reaches other applications and other considerations because it was an amendment to our site plan regulations. And in this case, it's a conditional use permit with some site plans underlying it.
Yeah.
It's a good comment. I think that the board ought to, take up that kind of consideration and take a look at what we amended into our regulations and decide if it's the right approach to these kinds of things. And as with many things, there's probably another side to the discussion. I just don't know what that is off the top of my head. But we may find that with more discussion, we think we are doing it. I don't know. But we should, find time on an agenda for some of our own internal housekeeping items to take a look at, that particular approach to it. Barbara?
Yeah, I will add my comments to Nelson's as well, because when you have a project that's that big and there are multi-buildings going in, both residential and commercial or industrial, to do one traffic study doesn't, and not to consider the project as a whole, let alone the fact that it changed and the commercial left, and now we have 92 residential units that will be coming before us at some point, which will also get a light analysis. And it just seems to me that we are creating, or we could potentially be creating, an unsafe situation at that end of town, particularly during the hours when the school buses are running. And they've had very limited tractor trailers going in there over the past. Now we're looking at tractor trailers. So I think, as Nelson says, I think there are times when the project has to be looked at from a whole perspective, and not just, to be taking little pieces of it and segments of it as we go along, because you're not going to get a full picture, and you're going to end up with a lack of analysis, which will create more chaos and unsafe conditions. So.
Fair comment as well. Other
Yeah.
folks want to add to that discussion? Again, I actually wasn't even listening to the debate. Once I get recused on something, I'm going to tune in on something else, and so I wasn't really following the debate. But I know with some of these projects, where the idea of a light analysis is there some prior analysis or some prior work that you can build on and use it progressively, and it may well be that there's a limit to being able to continue to build on old work, where you gotta take a more broad approach to it. I don't know. I think that the intent of those regulations when we adopted them was to take a look and say, exactly that. What do I know from a prior analysis, and what can I build on from it? And if you have an analysis that, the Merrimack Parcel A is a fair example of that. And when they were originally talking about the development at the bottom of the hill, it was a lot bigger, a lot more intense. And as they scaled it back, it was different each time, but it's still sort of easy to conclude that whatever it was is smaller than what was part of the analysis that we relied on in the past. And so you can have a comfort level with how you adopt that. But there is a point where either the original analysis is too old, or it's just too hard to tell whether the mosaic you have today has any relationship to the original one that was analyzed, that it warrants deeper discussion. So
I think that's absolutely right, and that's one of my concerns, and that's a concern for me with this Gilbert Crossing addition that we're talking about bringing on board. The original, this is the fiscal impact. I'm switching now. the fiscal impact study that was done for Gilbert Crossing was done in 2015, okay? So we're now adding more to that and all of that, and I'm sure we're gonna see another light analysis where they'll tell me how fast the cars are going and nothing to do with the impacts on Route 3.
Yeah, well, traffic and fiscal impact are different things, and there's
They
not a
are.
light version of a fiscal impact study.
What's that?
There's not a light version of a fiscal impact study, but what's been
Well-
demonstrated by the fiscal impact studies recently is that these types of residential are tax positive all by themselves, and so the addition of another building
Well,
fits into that same puzzle.
I have concern with the fiscal impact study that was done for Gilbert Crossing because of the bases that they used in there. At that time, they told us they didn't have any similar projects in Merrimack, so they used stuff from Amherst and from Nashua and elsewhere.
That was traffic, not the fiscal
No,
impact. The
this
fiscal
is- this
impact
is-
is here. It's based on our own police and our own fire department's feedback, plus the prediction on students in the school. I mean, fiscal impacts
Mm.
don't borrow from other towns, it's the traffic studies that do.
I believe they did look at.
Well, no, you're right. They do try to predict what the tax base is gonna be based
Yeah.
on looking for similar developments. No, you're right, there is a
They
piece that,
used a whole lot of others, and we have similar developments in town that could have been used, I think.
again, I'm recused on Gilbert Crossing, so I don't have any comments on what they thought was comparable for that one, so I'll leave that alone, but, those parts of the discussion are appropriate to have whenever there's a chance to look at a fiscal impact study.
Let's make an
That-
opportunity.
That said, and again, this has got nothing to do with Gilbert Crossing, all of those things are peer reviewed by professionals who are capable of telling us whether they think what the comps were comparable or not.
But when they're told to do a limited review, they do limit the review. And that's what gets reviewed.
Robert, is there a limited review on fiscal impacts? I didn't think that there was.
No, there's not.
So the traffic can do a
Well, okay,
limited review, but a
traffic
fiscal
gets
is
a
what it
limited
is.
review. The fiscal impact still use outside of town kind of development, and we had similar developments here in town, so.
I don't know that being inside or outside of town makes something more or less comparable. I think that's why we rely on the peer review to tell us that.
I don't think well, maybe they look at it, maybe they don't, I don't know.
It is a one that I can't say definitively because I don't know what exactly their approach to these things is. However, their understanding of what's comparable is greater than mine. I can promise you that.
Maybe.
Other comments or questions about that discussion? Why don't we try to put something on the calendar for a future meeting where we can take a look at how we've changed that regulation on the parking light analysis thing?
Good.
As far as comparable properties for fiscal impact, I think there's a different section of the regulation. I don't think we identify any limitations on what we tell people for what's comparable. Robert, do we?
I can't speak enough to it in the moment to
I don't
answer
think
that.
we do, but we've been accepting things that weren't comparable in my view. That's-
Is there a sense that the fiscal impact hasn't played out as predicted at any of these developments, Gilbert Crossing or any other?
I can't say so, but I think the traffic is a different situation, but, yeah, for the fiscal impact, I can't say for sure.
Yeah. I wasn't involved in any of the fiscal impact discussions for Gilbert
Yeah.
Crossing, but the ones that I've seen from the other CUPs that are around, which is where you get a fiscal impact study, my understanding is that they've played out at least as favorable as was predicted, mostly because they're producing far less school-age kids than predicted in any of these analysis. The numbers are
Yeah.
about a quarter of that. But I had a different thought about fiscal impact studies the other day that I wanted to make sure we were attending to, in that when we have somebody do a fiscal impact study and they figure out what's going to impact on the schools and how many school-age kids and how many, what the tax money is going to be and who benefits from all of that, I'm not sure that our approach to that correctly separates the town's interest from the school district's interests. And when there's less school kids, the school system gets its same amount of taxes based on the proportion of taxes, but has less students coming to it. The town has no change in its required services for police, fire, and roads and all the things that it does as a result of the number of kids that are involved in there. And I don't know that we approach that correctly or as thoroughly as we can. Maybe we do, and I just don't haven't dug into one in a while.
Either way. Yeah.
No, that's true, but it's part of the analysis of what the variability is. Separate from Gilbert Crossing, because I don't tune into their traffic because I wasn't involved in the studies. The traffic studies that we've observed in other parts of the town have been remarkably accurate and spot on. I know that exit 11 was the biggest traffic controversy we've ever had, and now that thing is on, those buildings are online there, that intersection has really calmed down to be almost a non-issue. Even when you press their because of a technical fix more than anything else.
Right, and I was going to say that. I think it was key to bring the experts in to actually look at coordinating the timing of the lights on all 3 and 4 intersections.
Yep.
And how they all fed into each other. Because if you think about it, there's lights down, further down Greeley, there's lights, as you're getting off, lights as you're trying to get on, and
Yep.
just the timing was off. And so fortunately, DOT was able to work with the construction company.
They were, and they had this new technology to work with. That was a unique opportunity for improvement with sort of deeper understanding of traffic and kind of how we approach it from a planning standpoint. But traffic lights that are too close to each other interfere with each other. And that's what's going on at exit 11. All of those lights are in a place where bad timing of one light means that cars are backed up into the previous intersection and can't get through it or can't get across it. That situation where you have a cluster of close together red lights doesn't exist anywhere else in town. So when you look at what's going on, I don't know, you pick the south end with the thing south of Nashua Corp. That I can never remember the development's name of it. Edgebrook Heights. Edgebrook Heights.
Yeah.
If they had a traffic situation going on down there, that particular solution with the technology for red lights wouldn't do you anything because there's no situation like that. But maybe there's some other solution that would relate to that site or location or Gilbert Crossing or somewhere else. Rather than just say, why don't we attack that in a future one, why don't we kind of give ourselves a bit of a deadline to say and we're going to head into summer and nobody's going to be wanting to spend extra time at a planning board meeting, but by October, we have it on one of our agendas to take a look at these particular regulations
Yeah,
and
can we get
understand whether we want to deal with the light.
Yeah.
And can we get a copy of the actual regulation? Because I've been looking for it, but I couldn't find where it was in the code.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if I could find that for you, at least the citation to it really quickly, but one way or another, we can absolutely get copies of
yeah,
it.
that way we all have, that document to
The
reference.
latest
Section-
document.
Section
Okay, so-
3.14 in the site plan regulations.
Yep. 3.14 of the site plan. Okay.
Thank you.
Other items of concern that people want to talk about? Just always take a chance on the soapbox and invite more people to come apply to be board members. I'm glad to have Jamie join us, but there's room for more seats. So please, if you're interested in
We only have one more opening now, right?
that and 2 alternates,
Oh, the 2 alternates.
one
yeah,
full and 2
yeah,
alternates. Yeah, that's right. So if anybody's interested or anybody knows that anybody's interested, Why don't we double our finder's fee if anybody finds any new people? We don't. That's why it's easy to double it. I didn't even need authority or anything to do that. All on my own. Okay, then the last item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of June 15th, 2021. What is the will of the board?
I think I'm okay with that.
Motion by Barbara to approve the minutes as written. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Nelson Disco.
Yeah.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? 5-0-0 to approve the minutes. And with that, we are at the appointed time for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstaining? 5-0-0 to adjourn. Thank you all very much for the good work tonight. And don't forget to turn your microphone off.
Good idea.